welcome everybody to the show. I'd like to introduce to you Harsharan, who's with me today to talk all things spirituality in motherhood, and also to let us know about the latest book that she has out. So if I let you introduce yourself and tell us a bit more about yourself.
Yes, so I'm Harsharan Gill-Kent. I'm author of the books Motherhood My Way and The Cosmic Mom. And I'm entrepreneur and I have business in more of mindfulness and again helping mothers. I'm also a spiritual coach for mothers as well. So my whole purpose is to always help mothers be more spiritually in tuned to kind of make their motherhood journey better.
Excellent. I would love to know in what ways do you think kind of having a spiritual life, a spiritual base, something that you do every day, how does that sort of help you in your motherhood journey, would you say?
Right. So I always say the spirituality is like an anchor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some people have obviously religious beliefs, so this doesn't interfere with their
Yeah.
personal religious beliefs, but it's more of an anchor, kind of seeking guidance and just knowing there's a higher power
Mm.
beyond you, especially if sometimes I always feel it's easy said than done, right?
Mm-hmm.
But when, let's say you're going through a phase, you're home alone, tantrums of your child, a toddler,
Mm.
just to kind of think, putting that spiritual twist on it, understanding
Mm-hmm.
that this is not sort of happening to me and your child is themselves, they're in their own body having their journey and you're
Yeah.
having your own journey, own spiritual journey, their spiritual being, kind of calms you down a little. And then
Yeah.
obviously you have practices, you know that kind of eventually become self-aware, that not take it personally, it's nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And then if you meditate or take a few deep breaths and kind of get back inside your body basically, because
Mm.
when a lot is going on, the chaos is happening, you're really outside your body, your emotions, your anger, frustration is really running you. So when you kind of take that deep breath and become more
Mm.
in tune with your body, what I always like to do, I start from top of my head and then just go all the way down to my
Yeah.
feet, understanding how am I feeling everywhere, or just kind of thinking, releasing some sort of
Yeah.
um anger into the mother earth, and ground yourself, and then you start realizing this is just temporary, this is nothing, it's just an experience, that's all it is, this is a human
Yeah.
experience you're having. So over time, and having that belief really helps you kind of ground yourself and start to
Mm-hmm.
separate yourself from child a little, and understand this is not personal, like it's not an emergency, you don't
Yeah.
need to
Yeah.
react to it, let it go by. So I believe personally for myself and the clients that I help, that really helps them kind of suddenly start have a completely different outlook on
Mm.
things.
Yeah.
And again, like I said, you don't kind of interfere with the religious aspect, you still have your faith and belief, but being more
Mm-hmm.
spiritual, more in tuned, kind of grounded, and feeling, seeking guidance, prayer, whatever it takes, signs,
Mm.
whatever it needs, but just kind of helps you get through it. It definitely makes
Yeah.
life a little easier.
Yeah. A couple of things you said that stood out to me there. I love the idea of anchoring because I
Mhm.
think that, like you said, it's easy to get swept up, not only in your own emotions, but you can get swept up in your child's emotions as well.
Yeah.
And especially when, not everybody has good emotional regulation.
Yes.
As mums, we're all working on it, aren't we? It's like
Yeah.
a daily job. We're all trying to just figure it out. And sometimes it's easy to get swept along with your child's moods, your child's,
Hmm.
outbursts and that kind of thing. And then it doesn't really help them in a way, does it?
No.
Because if you're caught up with it and then you get all kind of overwhelmed by it, they're more likely to carry on being overwhelmed by it. And I
Yeah.
loved how you said that it's an anchor to kind of show that don't be afraid of the emotion. It's not going to
Yeah.
overtake you if you
Yeah.
sit with it for a minute
That's
and let
it.
it, and sit with it and not, and your child will learn that by you modeling it that
That's
this
it.
emotion isn't scary. And the second thing I wanted to pick up that you said about coming back into your body, and
Yeah.
because that's something I learned not actually very long ago, which kind of blew my mind, is that a lot of people I don't think are very settled in their
That's right.
body. They don't know how it feels to inhabit their body. And I know it might sound a bit sort of out there, but we're all so
Yeah.
much in our heads, aren't we? We're overthinking, we're
Yeah.
just on the go, go, go doing. So when you sit and you ground and you come back to your body, really,
Yeah.
you know, because this is your house in a way, this is where you live. But how many people sort of feel that? Do
Yeah.
you kind of know what I mean?
No, I definitely understand that. I always think like the anger and like the big emotions just kind of
Mm-hmm.
take you completely out of your body. You're not really yourself. And then
Yeah.
and we say that, if you have a disagreement with your partner, or you've kind of
Mm-hmm.
have, or you're going through a tough time, and you always say like, oh, I haven't been myself lately. But you don't give yourself that grace when you're with your child. You just don't think, God, I haven't been myself. Like, I'm not
Yeah.
being myself, because you kind of think, it's like a superiority kind of complex as well. Like, oh,
Mm.
I'm here and my child's like, we're the same. And I think
Yeah.
that's that in spirituality as well. And generally, the mindset of like we're equal. And I talk about in my book that you're raising a
Mm-hmm.
mother as well as you're raising a
Yes.
child.
Yes,
So
so true.
you haven't done this before. And even if you have,
Mm-hmm.
we say like, oh, I've had like two kids, if I have third one, I've done this. You have never been a mother of three or mother of four. So it's
Mm-hmm.
all new experiences. So I think it really sort of helps to kind of just think, let me deal. And a lot of his triggers as well, right? Your
Yeah.
childhood triggers, the way people deal with you in your life.
Yeah.
All a child does is trigger you, and it
Yeah.
brings up something from the past.
Mm-hmm.
And then and so I think having that self-awareness, why I'm being so triggered, like that happens to me, used to happen to me. If my daughter cried or did something, immediately I'm like, why am I getting
Yes.
so angry? And then I
Yeah.
realized, because I've come from Indian, very strict parenting. My parents were quite strict, and so
Yeah.
you start to think like you learned something there, and now you're trying to think, this is how I automatically need to react to my child. But
Mm-hmm.
you can be like, no, I don't actually. I have a choice to make. I can do things differently this time. Oh,
Yeah.
and be different. I was probably a different child, and my daughter is different to the way I was. So kind of
Yes.
understanding that it's always going to be different,
Yeah.
and just connecting with love, and grounding really helps. I always
Yeah.
do that. Like, oh, go near water, or just even hug a tree. My daughter hugs
Yeah.
a tree, and she's 3 years old. I'm like, start them
Yes.
young, like feel it.
Yeah. And have you always been into the spiritual aspect of it all, or is that something that kind of came later on in your life?
So I've always been spiritual. Like, when I look back, I've always been spiritual. And the time where I struggled the most was probably when my daughter was born, because
Mm.
I had a life where I woke up, meditated for 15 minutes, wrote in my journal, just had a slow start. And when my daughter was born, it's like, what do I do
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
when do I meditate? And
Yeah.
I started to feel that, there wasn't much out there that kind of
Mm.
really told you, how do you do this? Everybody tells you to meditate, but if your child's waking you up, how do you meditate? Like, so
Mm.
kind of having this personalized solution to yourself. I found my way back into meditation. I think she was 2 months old, and
Yeah.
figured it out that I just need to wake up early, no matter how tired. But even if I can do that 10 minutes, let her lay down, like train her where she just lies down when
Mm.
she wakes up. So that kind of, I start to see a difference. And I was pregnant in COVID. All I did was meditate, and I had my husband
Mm.
involved. We will just meditate, and we saw the difference as well, of that meditation, how calm the pregnancy was. Plus, we didn't
Mm.
see anyone,
Yeah.
which I always say was a good thing for me, because
Yeah.
I just felt like I always connected to myself, and
Yeah.
it was very slow paced
Yeah.
pregnancy, but that really helped. And that's something I took into my motherhood journey, having slow
Yeah.
pace. Like, I'll do things in my own time, whether it be going on a holiday, I'll do it in my own time when my body feels ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
A child wouldn't care, like, if you took them on holiday when they're 5 or when they're 2 months old.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but finding yourself, like, finding yourself back in your body, and I
Yeah.
think it's quite important.
Yeah. So, what would you say then are the biggest things that it's done for you, being into more the spiritual aspect of things and bringing it into your motherhood journey? What have you really learned, discovered about yourself as a person and yourself
Yeah.
as a mother, through through it all?
I would say there have been a lot of things. One, where I thought I had become a calm person, you
Hmm.
know, after motherhood, I realized, but because when you meditate, you have the awareness first. And,
Hmm.
when you become in tune and form a habit of just like, understanding what you're thinking or how
Mm.
what your body's feeling, really just the body, like, wait, I'm getting very angry or having
Yeah.
like quite a big feeling in my heart. And those kind of emotions, didn't realize I had so much,
Hmm.
if I've had a hard day working, or like menstrual cycles, and immediately I realize, I've like suddenly get this rage of anger, then
Yeah.
I kind of take a step back and it's like I need to deep breath. And I say that to my
Mm.
daughter as well. She's on 3.5, but I always say, like, mummy needs to take a deep breath, and she takes it with me. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
like, no, sometimes it doesn't work, but I would walk out, go to the toilet, take, calm myself down
Yeah.
and understand how I'm feeling, gotta let it go and
Hmm.
revisit it later. And journaling helps. I write it down. When I've had a hard day, I would write it down how I felt. And I always call my journal of epiphanies, because by the end of it, when you finish writing, you realize, God, that's how I could have did better, that's what I'll do next
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
and and I think other thing, you realize the triggers as well, the
Mm.
how you trigger, and also the pain. I've had a lovely childhood, but things that you start picking up spiritually, that's why I do those things. Oh,
Yeah.
I get, because I was also brought up in India for some of my life till I was 13, and things you see, the culture is different as well there.
Hmm.
So you realize that, oh, I get scared of these things, and
Yeah.
and my daughter might feel that. So a lot of revisiting the past happens and then
Yeah.
you kind of get to heal yourself a little,
Yes.
because even if you had the best parents in the world, there are outer factors that kind of
Yeah.
affect you. And so you kind of get to revisit that and kind of make peace with it, and kind of start
Yeah.
living more now than
Yes.
future or past. So
Yeah.
that really
I
helped me.
I say this all the time, how important self-awareness is, because
Yeah,
and the only way to get that is to take time to slow down, to give your
that's
time to
right.
figure those things out. Because if you don't slow down, you're never going to know. And even you were talking about your upbringing a little bit, because I was brought up in Africa for the first
Hmm.
7 years of my life. Strict upbringing, very, it's academic, respect your
Yeah,
elders, be quiet. So all that sort of things. And like you said, sometimes you might say, oh, I had a happy childhood, I was fine. But
yeah,
then you got to sort of ask yourself, why am I jumpy? Why am I hyper
yeah.
vigilant? Why where do those things come from? Is it
That's
is
right.
it is it from being yelled at? Is it from being, be at attention when somebody walks in the house, that kind of thing? And you don't realize how these things affect your parenting, because
Yes,
you don't ever think about it. It's not a big deal. So I
yes,
really love the idea of slowing down, journaling, just taking time out to figure yourself out. And that's how you figure out what your triggers are.
yes,
Otherwise, you'll just be firing all over the place because you don't
yeah.
know.
And I think it's also that, you also start figuring out how you and your child want to lead this path
Yeah.
together, not
Yeah.
separately, right? Like, for example, we don't have television in our house. We sold it like about a year ago, and my daughter's never,
Wow. Yeah.
never kind of watches anything.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But that I always say to my husband that I don't know if it's the right decision or not, but it feels
Mm-hmm.
right to me. But that's something me and her will, and all three of us will figure out slowly.
Yeah.
So something like that, if you kind of run with it because the world runs
Yes.
with it. So things like
Yeah.
that, I think spiritually
Yeah.
start questioning things like, what, it's like a blank canvas. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how do I want to, paint this? How do I want to go
Yes.
forward
It's
with
your
this?
journey, isn't it? Your personal
Yes,
journey. How do you want it to go? You
yes.
design
And
it.
we have a lot of out voices telling us, mothers, like how to be, what to do.
Yes.
And that's why I wrote Motherhood My Way, which was that I'm going to do things my way, take my
Yeah.
time, whether it's you want to breastfeed or bottle feed the baby, whatever it is, just do it
Yeah.
your way. But in that, you realize it's more what you're doing is working on yourself, all
Mm-hmm.
healing everything. And a lot of things, judgment is, big. We judge others and they judge us, and kind of
Yes.
like eliminating that. And that's a long sort of process, but you kind
Yeah.
of get there. And then you sometimes see a glimpse of it every now and then, and you look at somebody and think, oh, and then you realize, oh wait, why am I judging? And I always think what you give will come back to you. So you kind of start balancing that out a little as well. But it's so important. And I always think you do have 2 minutes to just go outside and just, I always just put my hands on the grass and be like, okay, everything is coming out of
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
But it can be so much more personalized, whatever you
Yeah.
can do, but
Yeah.
it really helps.
Yeah. I would love to know about your books. You've got two,
Yes.
haven't you? Tell us about what stage you were at in your life when you decided to write the books? What were you looking for, and what were you hoping to sort of produce to put out into the world?
Yes, so Motherhood My Way, I wrote that. My daughter was 9 months at the time.
Wow, kudos
And
to you.
yeah, so it's a pocket guide, but it was more written for somebody who's trying to be pregnant, or is early stage of motherhood, or they can
Yeah,
read it at any stage of motherhood, but it was primarily focused on people who want to be pregnant and or are in the early stage. But
mm.
it all talks about things that nobody tells you, like meditate, like how important it is to calm yourself down first before you even deal with your baby who's
Yeah.
crying, because babies do feel your energy. That's
Oh
all they kind of
yes.
live off. And so
Yeah.
how do you kind of get that and connect into your baby? And where the idea came from, primarily when she was born, a lot of people telling you things. I didn't choose to breastfeed, and and then people telling you, oh, this is better, formula
Hmm.
fed babies are not, and mixed. But what I realized was there was some sort of opinion on everything you do,
Oh
right?
yes.
And there's always like 10,000 ways of doing things, and
Mm.
nobody knows what's the right thing to do,
Mm.
really. We kind of, people around me might be doing things certain way, and
Yeah.
in different cultures they might be doing different way, and things like that. And I think it was one moment, we went to a restaurant with family and friends, and my daughter wasn't falling asleep, and as she was sleeping and crying, and there was just so many people like telling me, oh,
Yeah.
give it to me. And I think I really felt in the moment, I would really just like people to leave me alone,
Yeah.
let
Yeah.
me figure this out. Like, I need a space to think what to do. And I knew
Yes.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
So I think at that moment, when I came back and reflected on that night, and I was
Mm.
like, I'll write this book, because there must be people, because all I wanted in that moment, and I think a lot of mothers do, is if somebody just gave them space and said, hey,
Yes.
just figure it
Yeah.
out. There's no rush. Like, it's fine. Like, we are okay. We get so worried that, oh, what is this person thinking? you
Yeah.
know am I looking like a bad mother? But
Mm.
somebody to just reassure us, like, don't worry, like, take your time and just not tell us what to do. Even if
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
know, even if
Yeah.
they know the solution is like, I'm fine, I'll ask for it, right?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's where the idea came, and the book talks about how to practices for judgment and meditation, and kind of also knowing you can have it all. But what I talk about is not having it all, like everything. You can work, have a child. It's like what your all is. Whatever you
Mm-hmm.
want, you can have it,
Mm.
but at a very more slow pace kind of,
Yes.
timeline. It doesn't need to be done just because your baby's born.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be that you let go of career, and shifting the mindset a little. And the
Mm-hmm.
Cosmic Mum I wrote last year, and I released a sort of end of the year in December, and that
Mm.
purely now dives into complete spiritual side and talks about angels, cosmic guidance, and law of attraction in motherhood, vision
Mm.
boards, and it focuses more on those sides. So that's for mothers at any stage, but it's really kind of shows you how to start your spiritual journey.
Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that do you coach mums?
Yes.
So tell us a
So
bit more about your coaching and how you work.
so I started coaching after probably early last year, and
Mm.
so in that, it's just mainly like a therapy to understand, like, give them the tools to kind of take away with them
Yeah.
to start their journey and become more grounded. Some of the moms that come to me are like, sometimes have a bit of anger issues, like this.
Mm.
They'll say that we really just triggered, I get so angry, and at the end of the day I'm exhausted. So things like that. So work on a plan on how to kind of like become more in tune and balanced, right?
Yeah.
And start understanding, it's more of inner work that I help them do. So could be like, was there in past traumas? So, and just kind of empowering them to understand that this is a new stage of your life, and you choose
Mm.
to be the way you want, and promoting more confidence. There
Mm-hmm.
could be somebody who is a working mom, want to work on their goals and struggling to balance their life. So kind of
Yeah.
understanding that, and kind of setting them up for how do we do goal setting as a mother. Otherwise we
Mm-hmm.
are told, like, I always think, younger generation always think you can work and have a baby. And I've started realizing we kind of sold this dream a bit wrong.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
my mom was a mum, she stayed at home. It was four of us, and then she went back to work and did part time and got back. And I always saw that generation didn't rush. And
yeah,
now we are rushing.
yeah,
Like there's a destination that we need to get to. We need
yeah,
to
yeah.
be, by 40, I need to have this. And it
Hmm.
is, even if you stay at home, I mean, I love to stay at home and just have, my daughter, but I also
Mm.
like to work too. So I've realized, like, you find a balance. There's got to
Yeah,
be a balance in everything. You got to be, you can't just, you can have it all at your own pace, basically, whatever
yeah,
your all is. And we need to strip away what society tells us, because in 20 years, it might be different with the AI and
yeah,
everything coming along.
exactly.
It might not look like this.
Yeah,
And you don't want to reflect back and think, oh God, I just felt like led my life based
yeah,
on whatever everybody told me.
yeah. And that's the worst feeling, if I'm honest with you, because
Yeah.
then you'll feel like, why didn't I sort of stand up for myself and live
Yeah.
life how I wanted to live? But tell us how we can find out more about you online and also where your books are available to purchase.
So you can find me on Instagram on Harsharan Gill-Kent. That's my Instagram handle. And my books are available on Amazon, The Cosmic Mum and Motherhood My Way.
Perfect. And before you go, can you give us maybe something that we can take away that we can incorporate into our sort of daily life? Something small, something quick, something short that you really think is going to help sort of just lift you a little bit if you're feeling kind of down or
Yeah.
having a rough day.
I would say the one exercise I like to do is imagining a white light coming from above
Mm,
and just cleansing your whole body and all the negative emotion, feel them in all parts of your body, and just
mm,
feel them going deep, deep into the ground and releasing out of your body. Would And that takes about 2 minutes, but you'll start to see a difference. And just say, I let go of all any emotion
yeah.
don't serve me. And you kind of repeat those affirmations. I let go of anything that doesn't serve me. And and I think that makes a big difference.
Wow, excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming
Thank
on and
you.
talking with me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paula. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.